Well, thanks for joining. I'm going to do a quick demo here of Surecatch and kind of go through the different features and the reason why we built this. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and kind of talk into a little bit about the philosophy that we have and why we did what we did. And so to get started here, I just want to talk for a second about the overall strategy. The reason we built Surecatch was to enable us to do both tracking and interaction with people coming to sites, and then also be able to push that information and integrate data from different data sources and make it actionable, whether that's to ad platforms or to email platforms. But we wanted to make sure that the core of the system was really interacting with people on your digital properties. So it's designed to be put on any website that you're operating on. And the way we do this is we basically do a CNAME onto the domain, and then we add a little piece of JavaScript. But to kind of get going here at the beginning, what you'll see is a login to one of our instances. So each one of the instances is set up to be independent of each other. You'll notice that right here, you have one very small logo for Surecatch, and that's really the only thing there. That's because this product was designed to be white labeled. You look at this particular instance on this domain is www.surecatch.io. So each client that we'd have set up under the Surecatch brand would be what happens before the dot, the WWN. You'll notice in the URL that I have that I'm already signed in for Staymates. You see this right here, it's staymates.surecatch.io. So what we did is we made it so if you had a different brand, say you were a publisher that had an agency, and you want to be able to sell this to your advertisers to run maybe in lieu of something like a HubSpot, that is something that is possible for them to do. And what would happen is you'd add advertiser A dot your agency brand.io. So that's definitely a functionality that's built in. And we did that so you could have it completely branded the way you wanted to have it branded. But you'll notice that right here as I sign in, the first and foremost is it does have two-factor authentication, and that's on purpose. The reason we're doing that is to make sure that it's secure. So this is actually secured at both rest and in transit. And so that's what we're doing. So you'll notice that right out of the gate that we have that built in. I got my verification code, actually came a little bit ago here now, one. I can get signed in and you can see it out of the gate. So I wanted to go over that really quickly just so you could see it. I'm going to spend most of the time for this demo into the Staymates instance of this. And first, I'm going to kind of show you the administration side of it just so you can see it quickly. The organizational settings, that just kind of gives you what the URL is. It's very easy to set up a new instance of this. We also have the ability to set up some custom attributes for the profile properties, which I'll get back to in a second, but you can see that it's pretty easy to add with the UI. We also have a whole profile unification and profile deletion based on how you want to set up rules for deleting different profiles that happen in different ways. And so there's different rules that you can set up, and you can add rules pretty easily. We also have the same concept with profile unification. And so you'll see here, we don't have a ton of them, but we do have it set up so that you could set a unification rule based on like email has the same value or other properties that have the same value. Or you can do groups as well, which is very similar to the way we build segments. So you'll notice that as we move forward. We do have some divisions in here, which enable like certain people to see certain parts of the system, not other ones. And then we have a whole managing users, which is very easy to add a user right in the system for them. And so that's kind of the administration side. The other part that I want to show right away is the sources, which ends up being the different websites you're running it on. Again, what you do is you set up a CNAME record, and then you, after that is registered to your domain, then you add a JavaScript and you're off and running on it. You can see this particular instance has 3 of them, including something from Unbounce. So we do some landing pages for some of our clients, and Unbounce enables you to add the CNAME records and add the JavaScript so we can actually see the traffic that's coming from there. Now, from there, then let's just talk a little bit about what we have. We have dashboarding here, which is just going to give you very similar to like a Google Analytics on what's going on. We do have some features here where you can look at different filters and different segments so you can see what's going on. Frankly, this is here just as kind of a standby until you really get into what you want to build, which is going to be more on the BI backend, which I'll get into in a little bit. that we make it very easy for you to do that. The observers are basically our ability to listen to what's going on. There's a fair amount of observers that are happening automatically. There's other ones that you can add. You can see in this particular instance, we have 130 observers that are on or that are in the system, and you can turn them on and off pretty easily. You can see from the UI, it's pretty clean to see if it's enabled or not, and you can sort by this, you can sort by all this information. Profiles are just that, the people who have come to your site or you've loaded information into the system on. And then profile properties is the setting up of the different data points you want to have on each profile. And the segments is how you actually go through and segment individuals. So there's a whole segment builder that I'll show you in a second. Campaigns is our ability to basically track activity that's custom into the system. So it's actually creating a custom UTM parameter. We have integrations with multiple systems, which I'll get into in a little bit, and we're continuing to expand those. Our conversations are our ways to interact with people on site, and I'll go through those in a little bit. And external embeds are our ability to basically embed any URL that you want to, and where we use this a lot is we actually have like how-to guides built into this. So we literally have some scribe how you create an external embed. The other thing that we do this for is actually any BI tool that enables you to embed on a site. You can embed right here, so you can get information right there for you. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. So to really start the demo, what I would tell you the first and most important component is, of course, is on the profiles. And so basically the way the profiles work, and I'll pull up mine because I have a lot of stuff on my profile. What you'll see is each individual that has come to your website or you've loaded creates a profile. You saw in the administration a second ago that we do have the ability to merge profiles, and we have a couple other ways to merge that I'll get into in a second as I go through the demo. But as you hit the summary, what you'll see I have a ton of total sessions. This has been running since November of 2022 on our sites. So this has just been acquiring that information over time. You'll see the segments and the integrations that I'm a part of, and you'll see just this overall summary. If I go to the timeline, this is where you can see what's happening on, like, you can literally go through and see everything that's running from the system, whether it's an event or an observer triggered or anything else that's happening. You can see this kind of chart up here by colors of what's happening. And so a little bit ago, I came to the site. You can see right now it's about 11:40. I came to the site and I went to this URL, and this is picking that up. If I did something like come over here to our meetings today site, you'll see this URL right here. Just pay attention to that really quick. If I refresh this and the site reloads, and I come over here and I come back to here and I refresh the timeline, you're going to pick up that now it shows 1:51. There's that conversation that just got open. And you can see everything that's running at the 11:41, which is our current time right now. And so you can see all of that happening in real time. Here's that page view that I had right here. It's all right there. So that's the timeline information. So the data is essentially the different profile properties that you've created and the information that exists on here. Now within this, you can see a couple key things. One, you can see the property name. You can see the value of those properties. You can see when it was last updated, and you can see where it was acquired from. If I hit show empty properties, then what's going to happen is you're going to see a bunch more stuff in here that has no information. And so you'll see all those down here that say null right here and other places throughout the system. So I'm just going to turn that off so you're not overwhelmed by the 571 properties that we have. But it is nice to be able to do this. We do enable you based on the different profile properties that you can actually come in here and literally type in information if you want to make that possible. That's all determined at the profile property level. And so some of the information that we're just generically tracking is going to be UTM codes, it's going to be refers, it's going to be IP data. All that stuff is just built into it. So as I go through here, you'll see again where the information is coming from, whether it's a system. So we're tracking the very first referrer host. So like when we first started tracking, where did that come from? We can also do last page viewed, right? So you can see that right here, which you saw me refresh that just a little bit ago. And so that's real time. So all that's right there. You're going through, you're seeing the different information that we have for IP data. It looks like the last time I had some new IP data was quite a while ago. I haven't been to any place new for a while that I've been on our sites. We also have it connected to a lot of different APIs. This ID information that you're seeing here, that's actually one component that we have that is actually a partnership that we have with Visual Visitor. So if we want to try to identify an individual that's coming to the site, it works better on the consumer space than the B2B space, but if you want to do that, it's usually pretty good at getting you to the household level. But you'll see some information here, like Chris McGarvey, she's our assistant here. So sometimes what happens when we're running that ID, because we're on a shared IP, it's not necessarily perfect down to the individual level. But again, that's just an API add-on that we have. It's not like it's not messing up anything at the data level. It's just that the information that's coming back from that partner is saying, oh, that IP address is also got something about this person as well. And so as you come through here, you'll see different things like all the UTM campaigns that we've had, which one was the first, which one was the latest. And we do this so we can kick off different things into the future and add people to different segments as we want to go through. So that's kind of a quick overview of the profile data. The way that information gets brought in then is a profile property. So we do have some that are generic, that are just in here, name, email, stuff like that's in there. But whenever you want to go set a new profile property up, you're able to do name, description, key, which is basically the name without any spaces. And then you see the data type, which ends up being a pretty important field, because this is where you are deciding the type of information that can go in there. So you can see we have text, email, number, decimal, true, false, date, time, currency, and then a lot of the different APIs that we have will actually pass data back to us through a JSON format. And so we might want to have that as a field that comes back. And then back to the merging of what we're doing that I showed you in the administration. When we merge your profile, you want to decide what type of information is kept with the merged information. Do you want to keep all of it? You want to keep the current information? You want to keep the oldest or the latest? And so that's how you're able to kind of determine what information is valuable, because some fields you're going to create and you're going to want to have the most up to date. Sometimes you're going to want to track, well, what was the very first one that we had? And sometimes you're going to want to keep all of it, like maybe all of the pages viewed. And this is your way of being able to do that. The type and source actually are user inputted from the administration. So these are just ways to keep track of the profile properties. So you have that as in your BI tool if you want to be able to grab certain information from certain sources or a certain type. You'll also notice that we have settings to be unique, which is going to impact the ability to be able to merge on the field. You also see, is it PII? Is it person identifiable information? We have this in there so you can manage any type of privacy concerns that you're doing. Is it single valued? So certain fields, you only want to be able to have one value. The editable, meaning that can you edit it on screen? And then whether or not if somebody comes to the site, if they can read and write to it based on what's happening in the observers. So that's how basically you set up a profile property, and all of those fields are then available to you when you are on each profile. So I randomly selected one here. You can just see they just came to the site at 11:45. So you're seeing this run live in the demo of the information that's available to you. This particular person came from New York. It looks like that's the time zone. I'm sorry. They actually came to the site from Florida based on their IP data, and you're able to go through and see how they got here. So it looks like they must use Google. The first page that they viewed was on, it looks like an article about Palm Beach. And so you can come through, you can see all this information with the last page viewed right there. So that's kind of nice to know kind of where they came from, how they hit the site, etc. I can also go through and see the timeline of what they've done, right? So we're almost real time in what's happening. You can see that the referrer host was here. Looks like they read the article they got here at 11:45 and 25 seconds. Looks like that's really all they did. And potentially they're still just sitting on that site reading that article. So that's the way kind of the profiles work. Now, a lot of times you're filling the profile data by observers. And so, as I mentioned before, we have a bunch of different observers. Some of them are running automatically, like IP address, stuff like that. Other ones you can set up. And we have a multitude of different ways we can set these up. It can be based on the behavior, which is probably the most common, what I'm going to walk you through. It could be based on the IP range. So if you know if somebody's working at a certain IP range, you could target them or collect information just specifically from those IP ranges. Geolocation, the same concept of a city, a state, or a certain latitude and longitude. An exit intent observer, so that's basically how close they are to the address bar, or a URL parameter observer. So those are all options to be able to do it. Within the behavior observer, you get the most dynamic, right? And throughout the system, you're going to see everything kind of runs off the same visual look to it. And that's that you're going to have a segment constraint and you're going to have a URL constraint. You have the name and description above that, and you'll have the on-off trigger right here to turn it on or off. Okay, then you have a menu up here, so you can also do a source constraint. So if you want to do a source that is just specific to a certain website, you can also set it there. Normally you set it up through the URL, but if for some reason you wanted to have source constraint, you can, or a division constraint. So back to being able to manage it, the restricted availability to the select division. So this is how you can actually make it so only certain people in your organization could see certain piece of information. So the segment constraint is how we do the segment builder, which right here you can see all the different segments we have in here. So if I want to do the test accounts, I could do that. And then what's going to happen here in the observer is that this will only run for the people who are already a part of those segments. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit done on here. And what you'll notice when I do that is, and this is pretty common throughout the whole system, is that, oh, I selected these, but I might not just want it to be in all. I might want it to be not in all. So I want to pay attention to just those people who aren't a part of this. And throughout most of the system, all of the drop downs are going to be dynamic based on what you selected. So if you selected a profile property that has a number, you're going to see it probably being equal, greater than, less than, etc., and different things like that. The URL constraints, again, you'll see once I do that, it has a starts with, exact match, does not start with, ends with, does not end with, anywhere, is not anywhere. The reason we do this is so you can do it very simple. Like if you have, it starts with, I might not want to start with, but is anywhere, maybe I know that I want to look at everything that has Florida in there. I can do that. I can also add additional ones, etc., with all this capability. So it's only going to run on those URLs. Now, what's a little bit different about our system compared to some other CDPs is we really wanted to pay attention to when we wanted the observer to start running. Most of the time, you're going to be able to do it just on page load, and you might want to do it after some delay. So like if you know you always have a form that's going to be running after, say, a few seconds, you can actually set this up to have it run after 2000 milliseconds. And that's when it's going to start paying attention. We do this because if there's a form that's on the site, but it doesn't load at the same time the site loads, you purposely have it delayed. Most systems won't be able to capture the information from that because the JavaScript isn't running, and except for if you do it on the page load. So we basically built into this where we can say, okay, listener, start paying attention now. And that's when it'll start paying attention. You can also see it. We have the same thing if somebody clicks on a selector. So if you're running some JavaScript that's showing something on screen and you want to wait until they click on that selector to start paying attention, you can do that. You can also do the hover. So if somebody hovers on something, you can have it pay attention then. Or if there's some change to a component, you can also have it do it then. Okay. So most of the time it's going to be on page load. And so that's just saying, when do I want it to pay attention? Then what you do is you set what you want it to, what the trigger you want it to be. So it might be content. So you can see the content, you can then select the HTML or CSS that's on the site, then you can say, I want to have the content be equal to the value, or it might not be the content selector. So what's in there? Is it in there or not in there, etc. So we have all that capability. You'll see that we have content is present, is not present. We also have click, hover. If there's a change in a selector, that's what can be the trigger. Instead of just when the observers are going to pay attention, you can also have the change be that's what's going to trigger your next action. We have scroll percentage. So based on the total of what's on the page, if you want to have it just as soon as somebody scrolls 1%, right after they do some type of a scroll, or if they do meet 50% of the page, we have that as well. We have the URL, page load, visit number. So that's how many visits somebody's been to the site. We also have page view number. So that would be the page view number within that session. Or we have the total page view number, which the total page view number would be how many pages they've seen overall. And then we get into device specific information like screen resolution with width and height, or browser width and height, ad block detected. So whether or not they have an ad block going on, the device type. So, we have it equals, so whether or not it's say mobile, tablet, desktop, unknown. So this is evidence or an example of where we make it so you can see it like it's dynamic when we're doing and setting up different parts of the system, so you're not overwhelmed by all the options. We also have the platforms, right? So equals, and there's so many platforms, we just make it so you can type it in there. And then we also have operating system, browser, and refer. So there could be a certain refer you want to pay attention to, and that's in there. So this is basically saying, hey, here's a trigger when the refer is equal to something or not equal to something, right? Whatever, I want to either update it. And then here's the choices of actions that we have. It starts out with the update the profile property. So that's when you just fill up the information. And so you could select a property. I want to have it be ranking testing, and I want to update it, and I wanted to update it based on the visitor data potentially. So it could be, I want to have the visitor data based on what's in there about this person. I want to update a field about this. One thing I'll note is maximum scroll depth is one of the options that we have that we can put in there. It could also be that you want to update just the tagline refer, right? And we want to do this by a custom value, and you can just type in what you wanted to have it be. I selected refer. I could then make this be a particular action based on that. So as a quick summary to this, what you're able to do is say, hey, I want to run it on just certain people who are part of a segment, on certain websites if I choose a source or a URL constraint where I have a certain web page. I can wait to tell it to run until after a certain period of time, after the page load or somebody clicks on something. And then I can tell the system to do different activities. Most of these actions, like the update profile property, is going to be just filling that up. But I also might start a conversation, which we have a lot of different ways to interact with people. We also have store an event, which is basically our ability to say, here's an event type, and I want to put data into the system. So you can see that on the timeline. We could also do a redirect. So if like somebody does something on the site, whatever it is, any of these triggers, we can automatically redirect them right away. That might be a little odd, but maybe there's a reason that immediately after they hit one page, you want to take them to another page. We can also reload that page. And particularly this reload, this little space right there is basically another millisecond that's in there. We might want to click on behalf of somebody. And then this identify, that's actually running one of our APIs. And that's that visual visitor API that can try to identify a certain group of people. So for instance, visual visitors technology enables you to limit when you're going to try to do an identification a little bit. But as you can see with all these constraints and capabilities we have above, we can really hone in on just using, and their system has a cost to it whenever you try to do that. And we can really hone that down into a very small window of people that we're going to try to identify. And then we also have other actions and APIs, and this list will continue to grow. Symphony is an email platform that we use, and within their marketing automation, they have a component that's called an offline event. So we can basically create complete marketing automation by anything that happens on site. We can push that into their tool, their email platform that also enables you to do SMS. And by using the combination of what we're doing in the email platform, you can really accomplish any type of automation and interaction you want with a website visitor. So we have these different rules, and you'll notice within this, we can also add rules into what we're doing. And so you can add multiple rules within one observer, so it's a little bit simpler. So if you're doing something complex, you can have just one of them in there, so you can have everything kind of set up, or you can capture multiple properties based on one interaction if you're trying to do something like that. So those are the observers, and then you have your profiles that you load up with profile properties. You can fill up the profile properties with observed information that happened on the site or actions, and then you get to the ability to be able to create segments. And what our segments are basically ability to create an audience of like-minded, or I should say, like profile properties. And so this will give you the total of the different people that are part of these certain segments. And so within this, we make it very easy to select a profile property. You can see we have all the options of saying, hey, is empty, is not empty, is equal to, is less than, etc., whatever it is. So this one is a timestamp, so it gives a static date or a dynamic date, so we can create the date unit. So if I want to have everybody who did this within the last 12 days ago in the past, right? And so I can do all of that. I can also add a condition that might be like a page viewed. And so I have page viewed, and then I have contains any of, etc. So I can do all that. Oh, I want to have this. I can add a value here, contains anywhere. Maybe again, my Florida example, I know that there's some URLs with Florida in there, and I notice there's some URLs with Texas in there. And right here, what I've just done by adding these is it creates an OR. So if you look at this right now, I'm saying, hey, I want to have anybody who has submitted the tagline, clicked on that within the last 12 days, and they've also viewed these page URLs that have this component on there. If I added a condition, I could continue to add just more ands. If I added a group, then I would be creating an OR. And I can continue to do that in any way that I want and make them essentially as complex as you would like. So all of that is right there in how you would build a segment. So just as an example of a segment, again, I clicked on that test accounts before. Here, what we're doing is we're trying to hit different people that we know are employee accounts on the site, or we know something about them, right? So back to that profile before, I was a part of test accounts. If you caught that, that was actually the first segment. This is back to the profile that I showed you right at the beginning. If I wanted to show you like the person who runs a lot of our demos and this stuff, you can see that they have this particular profile that he has 110 sessions, and he was last on the site on May 7th, and this was first created in March of 22 or 23. And so that's just an example of how the system, you can kind of click through and see it in the profiles of what it is. So if I kind of keep going, so the segments are, an underpinning of a lot of things that you're doing, because the segments end up being your ability to do a constraint in the system of only running it when they're a part of a segment or not a part of a segment. So it's a pretty big component of when you're building different things for the system to operate. The campaigns, what this is actually a way for us to create basically a funnel of what you can see, and then also a custom URL parameter. which then, because the way that we can do UTM parameters, what we can do is we can actually use this to create very custom interactions for people who have just done certain things. A use case for this would be append this parameter to an end of an ad, and then everybody who came back to the site from that ad, you would have in a very, you could see all the profiles that are right here. And then also you would be able to hit those people up with certain pop-ups if you want to do a pop-up, or different survey questions, etc., throughout the system. So that's there for you. An example of one that's kind of cool we could show is basically this webinar site selection, which is actually a part of a conversation I'll show you in a little bit. But essentially, we can view how many people have seen it, how many people clicked on that, and how many people registered after they clicked. And then basically we have this other view of just like everybody who did this. So we run these basically something like this. If you see this, this is Surecatch running on the side, and we will run this like a couple days before an event to make sure to see if we can't get one more webinar attendee. So this is from one that we ran a while ago. It must have been, it looks like in the April timeframe that we did that. And so you can see exactly how many people have been a part of each segment, that we basically create a segment for each one of them to kind of transition through the funnel, and you can see where people are at in that, which is pretty cool to be able to see that. So that's one way of being able to do that. The campaigns, and also, again, like I mentioned before, you know, we can connect this in different email platforms. If you use this as a part of the automation engine, you can actually make it so anybody who clicked on an email or a link within that email would have this UTM parameter, and then you could monitor that specifically in these campaigns to see how many people you've gotten back into that and the profiles that have done that. Our integrations is an area where we continue to grow over, you know, a lot of different ways. We have Facebook, which is actually creating an event in Facebook, so you can create custom audiences off of people who have done those events. So if I just click on this, what you can see is basically you can select a segment and basically run anybody who is a part of a segment and they've hit a certain page, and then you create that custom event, and you're passing information then over to Facebook to do that event. We also have Google Ad Manager, so you can actually push custom audiences to Ad Manager. We have this LinkedIn Ads Export, which is basically an SFTP, or basically a CSV download of certain segments that you can then immediately upload right into LinkedIn. Higher Logic is an email platform, which we're basically able to add people to certain audiences within Higher Logic. And then the same concept with Gulara, which is Symphony, their email platform, which is doing a recipient upload or that offline event that I showed you. That's how you set that up. And then the SFTP, we basically have the ability to create an SFTP, and I'll just pop into one real quick. It's taking a little bit longer to load than normal, but what this is doing is showing you, you know, what segments. In this one I have all, and this is basically SFTP where you have that set up, and then you can set up the mapping of the profile properties that you wanted to have, and then you can have it run as a one-time event, or you can set up a schedule to have it run basically whenever you want. So this is one way of being able to get information either into the system. This one is an export. We could also do it as an import, and to be able to have that capability of doing that. Now, when you do the mapping, especially when you're doing an import, what that enables you to do is you can choose whether you wanted to create a new profile or only match a profile. And what you'll notice is that you have to select a column then to match the profile property that you have, and then that will be basically the key that you're using when you run it. So that's an example of some of our integrations. Like I said, this is an area where we're going to continue to build out on. In basically development right now is the ability to both create webhooks going out. So basically in the same way that we have the concept of being able to run an offline event, we will also be able to run for Symphony, we'll also be able to run the ability to create a webhook and push information when somebody does something on the system, or receive any webhooks from other systems to get profile data or create new profiles that will then enable you to do custom pop-ups for people that are in certain segments. So that is kind of the overview of that. Now we're getting to one of our differentiators, at least in my opinion, when we look at this, and that's our conversations. And we have a plethora of different conversation types, and I will walk you through examples of different ones, different examples of these in just a second. But in a very high level, we have different categories of them. One category that we have are pop-ups. The other one is an inline. So a pop-up is going to be just that. It's going to pop up and kind of overlay on the screen. We can do pop-ups in a couple different ways. One pop-up way that we can do it is we can actually have like a trigger. So like a little circle down basically anywhere on the page, or maybe a little box on the side, a toaster, they're called sometimes, that you click on and then the form is there. The other options that we have would be just like if you can run them from an observer to say, hey, once these criteria are matched, then I want to run that pop-up. And so you can do those either way. Inline is going to just take over a component on the site and enable you to run it. And then sequential compared to a form is going to give you like 5 questions in one. Sequential is going to give you basically 1 page per question. A chat is our ability to actually create a chat interaction. It's predetermined. It's not like it's a customer service chat, but it'll help with like site navigation or pushing people in certain directions based on what they're looking for. And it's pretty complex logic that's built into that, which I'll show you in a second. And then a pop-up, external pop-up or external inline, basically just creates an iframe for you to have a different website running. And then an infographic pop-up or inline. An infographic is just basically simplifying it down to a picture. So if I clicked on this, you can see that you can just put an image URL and that's what you'd be popping up. So what I'll do quickly is I'm just going to walk you through a few examples of these. I'm actually going to start with getting rid of this one up here. I'm going to just go to meetingstoday.com so you can see exactly what we're running on site right now through Surecatch. And this is live, this is running, we're capturing this information. So we have this right here is a component that we're running. What do you think about DEI in the industry? And so, you know, what's interesting about this is we can ask questions that are somewhat provocative, and then we have that information that then when we're pushing to an ad platform, we might have some type of psychographic type information on that individual that we can then customize the type of ads they're going to be seeing. Maybe we can customize the creative based on that. And so we're trying to run these kind of throughout the site, so we have this type of information and we can capture information. So in this, just for an instance, I can hit other, and once I do the other, you can see type here, you can see that. If I say more work is needed, I can hit submit. You can see we actually have the ability to see the information. And then if you want to go to the next question, you can click again, and we'll have another question. Again, many times we're choosing stuff that may on the surface be very controversial. Why are we doing that? One, we want to get people to answer the questions, and people tend to answer questions that make them think for a second or they feel very strongly about. And two, we're trying to get an overall profile of the individual, and it might be important for that very specific question, but it might just give us insight into their overall who they are. So that's one example. As I go down, what you'll see is that we have another one running right here. So enjoying our content. And we can actually use this particular block and we can take it over in different ways. And I'll show you how that works. But if you look at this, we have this, we type this in, and then that goes to our newswires, and that's how we get people to sign up for a newswire. And so that was one example. If you'll notice, if I come back up here and I do a backslash and I use a UTM parameter, we are able to run stuff based on just that UTM parameter, right? So if I do that and I hit enter, you'll see one example. where this particular example is showing up at over here. So if I click on this, it'll take me to a redirect and take me directly to the course, which is kind of cool. That's nice. That's a cool example. That's running there. Well, within our system, now I changed this, it'll be a different one. What you'll notice is that I can actually run this by date. And so that particular one takes me to a different one. And the date constraints can run different ones at different times, which is kind of cool. If I actually go back to this, and so these were both examples of a pop-up. If I go and I click on demo 3 of what I have up here running, what I have here is the ability, over here on the right, you can notice that it popped up, but it had a delay on it on purpose because we found that that's impactful. And then if I click on it, this would be like a widget that's running, and then you can see a Newswire subscription, and it's also pre-populating the information. So if I went back to my information on my system, it's information on my profile, it's actually pre-populating it there. Which is kind of cool. That's kind of neat. So, this is running on my system. I'll make note of one little bit. I want to actually get back to that profile right here really quick. Run this. I have my data in here. And actually, when I first did this, I had it as my title was CFO. If I come in here on the back end, it's OO. I have that in there. Now, if I come back to this, to the tab, I hit refresh. Now I'm rerunning this. You'll notice that there's a delay on this particular one on purpose to get people's attention. I click on this. Look at that. My title changed. Kind of cool to be able to see that. Now, I put this in there a long time ago to try to identify this profile. But if I wanted this to get rid of that last name as Shane Austerman Home, right? If I come back to this profile right here, what you'll notice, this, type in name, enter, second, operate, as it's going, you'll see, look, when I filled this in, my last name is here, and then it's Austerman Home. Well, I had filled this out a long time ago. Now I'm going to do this as Shane Austerman Work, just to show you something different. I hit work, I hit submit, and I don't know if that's the exact same one. I haven't tried it for a while. I refresh. Look at that, Newswire subscription, and this field is set up. You notice I originally did that on January 9th, and I gave one name. This particular field is set up to capture all. And so you'll notice that in this demo, you see the other one running, May 9th, 2024. Kind of cool, real time, you're seeing the information change, right? So again, this is an idea of having a widget or a toaster that's kicking this off and filling in the information. If I go to another example of this, what this is going to do is it's going to take you basically, oh, I did something wrong there. A second. So let me go to 4. This particular one is a demo one, the same type of concept, right? Looks a little bit different with a different border. I can click on this, and this is something that we used in 2023 to get signups for our live events. Now, each one of these, if you look at the bottom left down here when I do this, you will actually see a different URL for each one of these. So depending on where they want to go, it's interactive, and they're able to then click on, ooh, I really want to go to Punta Cana, and that would take you to our Punta Cana site that we had up and running. So that's kind of cool. It's just another example of that exact same type of concept that's run. If I go to the next one here, this is just a straight pop-up, nothing going on. Same thing though, I could click on this and it'd take me to the different pages. So this is how we are running them differently. course, I can exit out of that and it just goes away. If I look at the 6, oh, look, this particular one, you can notice it actually did a redirect. So we set this up to be a demo of exactly how the system can work. So with that specific URL parameter, it actually took me to a new site where we actually have these running, where we have this question where I can say, hey, what's my favorite site to see? This is an example of an inline, single question that's on here. I can click here. It'll take me to the next question. It'll do a reload. More questions. I love it. These are different question types that we have in the system, and we're able to do all of that. So from a feature set, it enables you to do a lot of different things, like having a picture. And we set this up a really long time ago, but you can have a picture and a drop down and have that. And then at the very end of it, it just says your input is greatly appreciated. So that's an example of it. Now, if I go back, well, I'll just go to the next one. I'll go back twice here, back, demo chain, get back to my demo. I actually want to now skip to demo 6. And this particular one, oh, wait a second. That's the one that I just did. Second. Skip to demo 7 here. And this particular one actually enables you to go through most of our question types and logic that we have built into here. So which hotel do you prefer for meetings and events? So if I click Comfort Inn, what you'll notice is then I have a different question type, right? So I can go back, Comfort Inn, actually I was wrong. I like the Econo Lodge. Well, here I can do a ranking type question. So that's the most important. Location, perks, and availability. Now I have those all in there. Actually, I wanted this one. Location is most important thing. Well, I can go to the next question and look, here's a picture that came up directly from that. You can see what it looks like. If I go back, I can actually go to Motel 6, do the same thing, take my price, take my location, perks, availability, hit next, and I can do that, right? And I can keep going through. I can go to Motel 6, right? I can look at that. How many times you typically stay in a year? Here's a number type of a question. I got 5. If price were no issue, which of these hotels would I prefer? Well, I prefer the Ramada. What factors do you consider when choosing hotel, right? So different types, I can click all that applies. I can provide an email. Oh, it won't let me just skip through this because that question is required. All right, I'll put in an email, test.com. I can hit next now. We have CAPTCHA to make sure that it's a legit question. Oh, look, I typed it in wrong. There we go. Now I have it right. Let me submit that. Thank you. So there's an example of a bunch of the different that we have as a pop-up. We can also do that as an inline. So I can do the inline type. And what we did here is we took over that same question we had before, but instead of it, now it's going to be right here. So now if I select my Comfort Inn, go to next, I can do the same thing, going through the same ability, but now it's all in an inline functionality, which ends up creating a lot of different ways where you can do this. Now you'll notice here, it took me to a completely different picture on the Comfort Inn because there's logic built into it, which is pretty neat. And then right here, let me jump over a new external pop-up that I have, version 9. Here is an example of doing an external. So this is actually running on it's a different website. It's actually our same site. And so what you'll notice is it popped it up in an iframe. And so now I'm able to see basically a different website running in basically an iframe. And then the 10th version that we have here of the demo is the ability to do that same thing in an inline. Now, in this case, we're actually running the inline in where we had the old sign up for our newsletter. So if I take this away, you can see that same, that iframe running. If I take this away and I refresh it, what you're going to see is that it's back to the newswire. And if I go back, you'll actually see the demo there, with that URL parameter, it's loading something completely different. So it's very, very easy to see that in multiple different ways. One of the advantages of doing some of this stuff, so like if I just click on an article here, what you'll see then as we're going through here, we have this, we can run these, we can drop these in different parts of the website, different article types, different things like that. We can run that throughout the site based on what you are overtaking on the site, which is kind of cool. As we go through stuff, we can have it pop up in different ways. The last one that I need to show you from the conversations is the chat bot functionality, which you'll notice here, we're running, like if you just came to SameMates.com, you wouldn't see this. But if I click on this right here, we actually have the welcome SameMates. You need anything? Yes, please. Okay, what can I help you with today? Well, in this case, I want some help with higher education. Great. Are you with one? Yes. Well, which one? That's interesting. I'm with college, right? And I can enter, it'll take the next section. Cool, what are you looking for? Work samples, I want to contact someone. I want to have marketing insights. Great, are you looking for podcasts? Whatever, right? So it's very dynamic by the type of what we're doing. Well, I want to look at our podcast. Well, hey, all right, let me take you there. And so the system will take you directly there and have it. So that's kind of a cool way of being able to go through and do it. If I want to restart, I can restart it, and I can go through a completely different avenue of doing it, right? Yes, please. Okay, what can I help you with? Healthcare. Okay, what do you want to look at? I want to look at our expertise. What are you really looking forward to? Well, I want content. Here's a link to our content solution, right? And so that took me straight to the content solution. So that chatbot, while it's predetermined, it does have some value to it. And we can do that chatbot in a way that we can get research responses, which ends up being pretty valuable. So that you saw all the end results from that side and how it was interactive. If I actually go into some of this, there's a couple other features I just kind of want to show you on these conversations. So if I go in and I edit this, one of the things that you'll see here is, and this was one of the ones we were just looking at, right? This was a demo 7.1 that we have. If I look at this, I have the single select, I have all that stuff running. Oh, single select ranking, right? So the type of questions that we have, and then another ranking, right? So I can do all of that in there. Forget about fancy, but here's the logic component, right? Please rank the following characteristics for roadway. And so we have this component, and the display logic is enabled. And so you'll see that the question 4 settings are going to be required. It's the questions themselves, price, location, availability, and perks are going to be randomized. And if I wanted to, I could pre-populate it. I could also map to a property. I could match a profile, which is our ability to be able to match a profile in near real time. I say that it takes about 2 to 3 minutes, but most systems won't enable you to match profiles, all of the profile data, unless it runs overnight. And so ours runs in about 2 to 3 minutes, and we continue to try to work on getting that to be a shorter period. But you'll notice that this question is only running when the first answer is any of, right, is answered, is not answered, etc. And the options are here, right? So I could have it to be any one of these in there, right? So that's kind of a cool way of being able to do that. And so you'll see that there's the different logic is built into that. So we have the different questions, and so you can see all this running. Now, that's how we can load the different questions, question types, everything that's in there. Now we can constrain this, and what you'll notice is that the URL constraints, which was literally how it was running, only is going to run when it ends with demo equals 7, right? If I wanted to, I could have it to be exact match, etc. But we are running this only when the end of it is demo 7, which is really kind of cool. So what does that mean? Well, even if I'm cross-site, right, I could actually run this over here. And I can't remember if that was the inline or not. So it might not work on the inline. I need to get to the right one where it was actually the pop-up. I'm doing this kind of quickly here. I picked the wrong one, but you can actually run these throughout the different, like on different sites than what, any of the sources that you have running there, you can run it wherever you kind of want it to. That's kind of cool to be able to do it. This particular case, we're running it just on a home page. But if we didn't have that observer kicking it off on there, we would be able to do it wherever we wanted. And so we can run these on different constraints, including segments. We can also run it on different configurations. So this one's set up as sequential. We could set this up as a form if we wanted to, which is one option. We also have the ability to randomize the questions, which we can't randomize this because we have logic built into it. So, but if you're doing some type of a survey that you wanted, whenever they pop up, you wanted it in whatever order you can. You can also see, you can put titles on this. You can put a priority on here. You can see the trigger. This is a pop-up with none. So that's the way that's running. You can also see the auto resume. If we are doing sequential, we can set questions up to auto resume. So if they do come back at a later date, it will resume where they're at right there in those questions. And then you'll notice that we had a completion at the end here that had a message on it. We can also do redirects if we want to. So we can redirect with a message. So basically you can actually say, hey, I want to have this message. I can do it as a markdown as well, enter a markdown message. I can also do the redirect by dynamic. And so basically I could do a dynamic redirect, and that dynamic redirect would give you a base URL. And based on the mapping, I could select a timestamp. If I want to do it, I could name the query parameter. I can add it. And if I wanted to have first name here as a parameter, type in name, you can literally see how we're building a dynamic redirect to whatever site you want. This is very helpful if you're trying to push somebody to another form solution. Maybe it's an event sign up, something like that, that you want to do that's on Zoom or something else. So that's kind of our conversations that we have. What's nice about it is all of our conversations are able to be customized through CSS. We are working on implementing a couple different drag and drop tools, but we do have this ability to make it look essentially any which way we want to, based on using CSS parameters on literally each and every component that's created. And so that's an area where we're going to continue to improve upon, making it a little bit more easy to do it. Now, within those conversations, though, we do have the ability to duplicate them. So it does make it easy that once you get a style that you really like, you can just duplicate it and do that. We do have some abilities to do like the public summary of how people answered questions, right? Where do you want it? At the end of each question, after each question, and at the end. We can also show answered, show skipped, show option count, so you can see how many people have answered the question. So those are some of the kind of deeper functionality. I should also note that we do, and I forgot to show this earlier, within segments, if you go in and you edit a segment, you can actually, whenever anybody fills out a particular segment, you can actually have it notify users in the system. So if I wanted, anytime somebody joined this segment, I could notify that user, enabling you to use this a little bit more like, account-based marketing. So if you're a salesperson and somebody downloads your media kit, you could actually notify a salesperson that this person was that, they did an email with a link that went directly to the observer. Okay, so a part of what we have, then the next component would be the external embeds, which external embeds are literally the ability to embed any site that enables you to, that literally has the option to embed. So I mentioned this before, but we actually use this with Scribe to show people, kind of walk through exactly what you do, how you do this. So instead of having kind of a generic user guide that's, web site based, we literally walk people through how to do it within the system. That makes it super easy to be able to create different embeds. So we're actually in this one literally showing you how to create the embed as you're looking through here. Another thing that we do is we recognize that dashboarding and creating custom dashboards is actually very hard to do in a system, but it's also, everybody has a system that they prefer. And so we have some clients that use, a lot of clients use Metabase because a solution that a lot of our clients have used in the past also uses Metabase. And so we decided, okay, well, why don't we show people how they could actually do this in Metabase? And so here's an example of actually a Metabase dashboard that is literally being run within the system. And so we can, click on different components. Oh, I'm not connected right now to it, so it's only going to give me the option to show this, but I do have the different dashboards that are right in here in the system that I can click on and see. And if I was signed into the system, I could actually click through and get to profiles on some of those. Here's an example of progressive profiling. So those same questions that you saw running, you can actually see how many people have actually answered some of those questions since we've had them running. Some of these we just set up, so you're not seeing a lot. Some of these are just, for the most part, we're highlighting on our homepage, so they're not getting as much traffic. But you can see how different people have done this. This is running through Metabase. If I want to look at a different example, we do actually have an old Google Analytics. Oh, mouse. Google Analytics. Here's an example of, a Looker dashboard that's popped up on here, right? So we have those ability to do the external embeds as well. So this is all fine and good. I mentioned how it's pretty easy to create information on the backside. I did want to show like an example where we have Metabase. So this is Metabase. We've hooked up the data in the back. So here's one example of this that I have. If I went to some of my other clients that I have, I go to my Staymates instance, right? And I can see my client reports. And I can see live events. I can see the live events review, and I can see literally different ways that I've done this. And now that I'm running this in Metabase, I can actually click through profiles with any answer to any live event question. And I can literally click on this. And as I click out, I can start to see more information, right? I can break it out, buy it, it's all click through based on what you've created in Metabase, which, like I said, a lot of multiple clients has a lot of experience with it. But I do want to spend just a second showing you the back end of what the data looks like, because the system itself runs in a very simple stack. And so if I come in here and I look at like, for instance, an area where there's a lot of information would be profile events. And so as I pull this up, this is of course going to show you the first 2,000 rows in this. But if you look at this, what you'll notice is there's an ID, and then you'll notice that it comes back to source IDs. So that would be like the source that I set up in the system. So the different websites, a profile ID. So that's going to be the individual profile ID that this particular event is mapped to. You'll see the visitor session. So that's the session ID, which is one of the other tables in the system. You'll notice that we have the different types of events that I have, right? So if I wanted to filter by this column, you can see conversation responded, custom event, observer triggered, page view. And then you can see the data that's in there, which, this particular field has all of the information in there, which will have the host, the URL, the refer, and that. And so what does this mean? It means that the system itself is very simple. So instead of looking at a bazillion tables, you're actually able to see how the system runs on the back end in a very clean view. So I showed you profile events, profile data is going to give you a very similar, view where you have an ID. This would be the profile ID that was just being referenced in the other table, or this is the profile data. And then you have that profile ID right there. You have the profile property, which is the property key right there. So all you can see literally the keys that are mapping across the system and being pulled in, and then you see the source of the data, right? And you see the value of that right there. And the whole system kind of runs like that. So if I go to the segments, you're going to see, here we have 670 rows, which is literally all of the segments. Here's its unique ID. Here's the name of it, here's the description, and here's the rules that are built into it, right? And so we brought up, what was in there, if there's any data in there, is it enabled, the meta information on it, and when it was created, updated, and if it's been deleted. So there's the segments. So it's really easy to see kind of all the information that's available to you right there. If you want to look at conversation responses, these would be the individual responses, right? The profile ID, the URL that it was captured at, so we can capture all of that information. And so you have all of this right at your fingertips, right? So you can see the question, you see the gateway arch that I had. Yeah, so that's, you can see when it was started and ended and all that good stuff right in this data. It makes it really easy to be able to understand how your data is working. And so for the most part, you see the different components of the system. There's the observers, where are those at, like what's going on with them, profile data, profile segments, profiles, right? Profile properties. So I showed you before how many different profile properties we had. This is showing 941 because we have, some that were deleted, that we still have the old information that's captured in the system, even though it's not showing in there. But you can see how it works there. So that's kind of the back end side of the data and how it operates and how it can be very easy to work with different systems. So that, for the most part, is the entire system that we have right now. Again, the key things that we're working on right now is we are most definitely working on building out the webhooks and then also different integrations with different email platforms as we continue to make it more interface with different systems. So yeah, that's the system. Thank you for paying attention, and I appreciate your time. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. Thanks.